So welcome to the next interview for the Practice magazine. Today our guest is James Tonn. James has been on our team for a while now. From almost as long as I remember, he's been helping us edit the magazine, and he's responsible for the magazine being so well written in English throughout the years. And recently, James also launched his new business, and it's doing really great. And well, James will say all about it, and we just decided to chat now about productivity and about other things. James.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to be here today, and Productive Magazine has been a huge influence on me just as an editor. So I took on the challenge early on, and I knew you were doing it in a bunch of different languages, and I wanted to help out on the editing side. And it did make a big difference over the years, having to go through all these productivity articles and then try little experiments in my work day. And I was in a career when I first started, just a salaried position as a manager. And so I was trying to figure out, how can I apply this and testing stuff out. And then I became a consultant, and then I started my own business. And I kind of took the productivity stuff I'd been learning over the years, and then the Productive Magazine stuff. And I use Noseby all the time as well, which I can probably talk about a little bit later about how I organize my day. But taking all those and then trying to create a company. So I created an audiobook publishing company. It's called Podium Publishing. And we just do audiobooks. We're focused on that one thing, and we're trying to do that better than our competition, which is a pretty tough market out there. All the big five audiobook publishers that are all the subsidiaries of Random House and Macmillan, and all the big publishers have their own audiobook subsidiaries with lots of staff, lots of money. And so we're trying to beat them, and you can't just outstaff them or outspend them. You have to figure out, it's like productivity. So when we created our corporate structure, right from the day one, we just wanted to design it in the most efficient and effective manner, that we wouldn't have a lot of challenges that most startups have. So that's kind of the tie-in. Is like, today I thought something we could talk about and that you seemed pretty interested in was, the essentials of scalability. So how do you take a company, create it from day one to be scalable, and grow it over the years? And it really comes down to, being pretty minimal, launching before you really feel too comfortable, which in the software world, and and learning along the way and making tweaks and testing. So it's pretty fun.
So exactly. I mean, it's a very cool success story. But so what triggered? I mean, so it's good that you being an editor of the Practice magazine forced you to read all these productivity inspiring articles.
Yeah.
So which is a great testimony for our magazine. But so what triggered the situation where you just decided to drop your job and start? Or did you drop the job and started the company, or did you start the company on the side? How was the transition there?
Yeah, good question. We wanted to take all the pressure off of a startup, so we thought this could be pretty massive. We spent about 1.5 to 2 years researching and studying the industry and figuring out the exact what was needed in that industry, and
wow.
we want to have a very competitive advantage. And so we spent quite a bit of time, me and my co-founder Greg Lawrence, who's the chief of production, and so during that time, we would go to our day jobs. He was actually producing audiobooks for a lot of big publishers. They were outsourcing work to him as a producer, and he was doing editing and production and stuff like that. And he realized, these companies think that we're actually doing something at the same quality as them, and they're passing off our work as theirs. It's an interesting thing. And then on my side, I was working in the procurement world, actually. We can talk about what that is exactly later, but helping spend large amounts of money and defend the public interest with money that was being spent, public money, and trying to make sure there's strategic alliances with public sector and private sector. So I was a manager in the public sector, helping spend that money by day. And then 10 o'clock at night, we would start working on our business every day of the week until 2 a.m. in the morning. And so 4 hours a night, we would work on the business for about 1.5 to 2 years before we launched our first audiobook. And when we did, we had designed a company that was scalable, that, one thing you asked about, I guess, really when it comes down to did you jump in full or not, the question is, did you have to go out and get funding? And that's actually a big question. If we had a whole bunch of funding right at the beginning, we could have just started launching audiobooks and doing it right away. But we didn't really want to go that route for a couple of reasons. And if you get into funding later on, we can talk about that. But essentially, we both agreed. We did a handshake. So we put, a year and a half, 2 years in without taking a cent or without even making a cent in revenue. So that takes a lot of dedication and kind of
Oh,
passion
yes.
for what you're doing. And then when we launched, we shook hands and we said, as co-founders, we won't take a cent out of this company unless we both agree for 2 years. And so what we're going to do is we'll put money in to start, and we'll roll it over and keep reinvesting everything in the company to scale it up. So that, because one of the things that's tough for a company is when you're trying to take money out and grow it at the same time. And
Right.
so we decided, so that's how I got into consulting, because I had to minimize my hours, increase the amount per hour I could make. And so I branched from a career type management job to consulting in my field. And so that was kind of the gateway drug to entrepreneurism, consulting. So that eventually, when the company got right around just before the 2 year mark, we said, okay, I think we're going to start taking out some money here. And so we kind of put aside our other stuff and focused fully out. And it's only been just over 2 years, so maybe not even 2.5 yet, since we launched our first audiobook.
Nice, nice. Really, it reminds me of my story when I was launching Nozbe. Is the whole year of Nozbe being online, I had a badge on my, I got it from a conference, I think. So I took the badge, and on the badge I put myself, I put CEO Nozbe. So like at 4 p.m. I would stop being a consultant for other additional companies, and I would just put on the badge. Now I'm CEO of Nozbe. And 4 p.m. I would start until very evening when my wife would come from her work. I would be the CEO of Nozbe, and I would launch, continue launching this business.
Yeah, I had a new baby at the time, actually, and my business partner had a baby as well. And during the founding years, we had another baby. So it was really like when the kids were asleep and I could kind of jump into something, we'd go, and we had a boardroom that we'd meet in, and we'd go and start our meetings at 10 o'clock at night. So it was pretty cool, and you have to have that kind of passion to be able to do that. And things get a little worse at work, and you just think, I have this solid business I'm working on the side. So all of a sudden you become a little more content with everything, knowing that you have a good career going for you. You have a business that's starting, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, I mean, you've touched on it a little, but I want to still ask you about, so your co-founder had more passion for audiobooks because he was already doing it. So, and you, because you were at the record label, you had some passion for creating musical production. So, apparently, I mean, you like written word because you've been editing Proactive Magazine and nobody forced you to. So, so I think.
And keep in mind, in those years when I was commuting to work, I was commuting an hour by train in the morning and an hour by night. So I was listening to audiobooks every day. And so I went from reading, 7 or 8 books a year to reading about 25 books a year because of audiobooks.
Same here.
Yeah, same thing. So that got me really interested, and I understood it from the customer side, and my business partner really knew it from the other side. And then we had the backgrounds that kind of matched to create a good company.
So how did you start scaling this? So you signed your first audiobook. How did you? I mean, how did you organize? The production, and everything, to be able to scale it more and to create more titles. I don't know how many titles you have this year. So can you just tell about that?
Yeah. So it was about July 2012. So mid 2012, we launched our first audiobook. It was actually 2 parts, and it's actually the only audiobook that never made any money. It's never even broken even, but it was the cost of entry. We had to take kind of a product and put it through our whole production system and tweak the machine, because we had essentially created a machine for production, a system.
Right.
And we really wanted to make sure that it was really quick to market and also very efficient, because a lot of our competitors were running large studios, flying in narrators from different cities. And we started using kind of a remote production model for the most part, and we were trying to figure out how can we hit that same quality as they're doing with remote production, not flying them in, making sure we have relationships with studios in different cities and some home studios, making sure they were up to our standards, and making sure we have this virtual team working on these projects that come together in a cohesive way.
You're going very well. So So you had all these, satellites like studios, right? That would record stuff for you. How do you make sure that the quality is right? That they have the right equipment? Would you buy them the equipment, or do you encourage them to buy the equipment, or did you check the equipment, or how do you make sure that the quality is right and the timeliness is right and the priorities are right over there? I mean, how do you coordinate these people who are not working full time for you? So you have to
Yeah.
make sure that they meet all these standards, deadlines, and everything else.
No, it's a great question. And like you run a remote company as well, I believe, with Nosby, right?
Yes.
They're all over the place. And so
Right.
creating a workplace culture for a remote company where people virtually never see each other, and maybe at a conference or at an annual meeting or something like that, you might come together and go out for drinks or something. But you have to. It's really difficult to create a culture in that environment. But we just realized, we had a list of value added things we could provide all of the people that worked with us. Flexibility. Uh, uh, their scheduling was a big issue. So trying to make it so that our stuff, they could fit in between flying to other studios. We wanted to be able to pay people like the day they were finished, or right immediately after they were done, because people were taking a month or two to pay invoices. And these are
Mhm.
independent contractors working and trying to support their families. So we just realized all the things that we hated about the workforce, we were trying to figure out how we can make it better for these people. And submitting one thing that's really helped us out is submitting the narrator's work for industry recognition. So
Mhm.
we submitted things for the Audis, which is kind of like the Oscars of audiobooks,
Ah,
and we were
nice.
not we were nominated for an Audi. Actually, this is the book here, The Martian. It's
Mhm.
mostly a digital product, but that's a CD version of it, and that's our big bestseller, I guess you could say. But
Yeah.
that was nominated for an Audi. We recently, just last week, got nominated for 7 audiobooks for Voice Arts Awards. And
Mhm.
so we're submitting this stuff on behalf of all the people working for us to give them recognition in the industry, even though it's a strong relationship, but it's a subcontracting relationship for the most part. So scaling the company was really all about relationships. There's a bunch of different
Mhm.
aspects, but in terms of staffing, we didn't ever really take on full-time staff. And Greg and I, like I said, didn't take out any money from the company. So everything in the company was just reinvested into production of audiobooks, into quality control, getting really great music that would go along with it, and making
Mhm.
sure it was just up to our standards that we could sign off. uh, Putting out audiobooks, we figured out how to have a cost efficient system and still have that great quality, how to
Mhm.
do it really quickly and efficiently. And then it became going out and getting rights. A big part of my job is acquisitions of audiobook rights.
Right.
And we saw one thing that got us really excited about this industry and creating any type of scalable company. You need to see in the industry like really good growth potential, exponential growth potential in the industry in general.
Mhm.
In the last 5 years, the audiobook industry grew it just about doubled. It grew about 12% per year on
Okay.
average. For the next 5 years, is growing about 17% a year on average. So it's going to double again. And the industry itself is growing really rapidly. Our company, we wanted to align ourselves to get to the top of that industry, so that we could take authors and then position them at the top of this burgeoning industry, as mobile devices took off and people can have audiobooks on the go anywhere they
Mhm.
go now. It's not so much CDs anymore. So we
Yeah.
also we also focused on, just like Amazon companies, we really aligned ourselves with kind of their ideology about design your company today for where the market's going to be at 5 or 10 years from now. And so we not even half of the audiobook sales were digital at the time when we launched, and we focused our whole business strategy on digital audiobook sales. And now, last year, actually, in a recent report, it showed that just over 70% of all audiobook downloads and all revenue is coming from digital, and it's growing, really rapidly in that direction. Yeah, so scaling, you depend a bit on industry growth.
Mhm.
You depend on your model that it can scale up. So it's like you say with email,
Mhm.
or like a lot of people in the productivity world talk about with business productivity. Your systems don't really matter until you have a huge amount of content or a huge amount of stuff flowing through those systems. Then they all break down. And
Yes.
so, if you're only getting 50 or 100 email a day, you might be able to manage it and kind of do your best without a system. When you have 200, 300, 400, then it comes down to like, what's your system? And so from day one, we kind of overbuilt this structure so that we could put through as many audiobooks as we want. We had redundancy in our positions. We made sure we had backups for different types of things, and and a number, Greg had relationships. To date, Greg, my co-founder, has worked on over 700 audiobooks. And you asked how many audiobooks has Podium Publishing published, and so it's now over 100.
Wow.
And in about just over 2 years, so we've done over 100 audiobooks, and we're not really aiming for quantity too much. We're really aiming for quality. At the beginning, it was a little bit more hit and miss, and now we've been able to hone what we know works well, what we're really good at.
You'd rather, scale the different, parts, but then the core, you wanna control more the core, like the final result. And,
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, minimum effective dose. We had to figure out early on what's the skeleton that is essential, and we actually thought things were part of the skeleton that weren't. For instance, we wanted to have a website because we thought we would need to, when we're talking to authors, we'd have to show them, we're credible. We already had industry recognition, and we had some cool celebrities that Greg had the opportunity to work with. Dr. House from the TV show House, when he launched his audiobook, he said, I want the best producer, I want the best quality, best narrator, and they outsourced it. That big publishing company outsourced it to Greg and said, get the best narrator, like we don't even know who it is. And so he put together an award-winning audiobook for Hugh Laurie, is that actor's name.
Yeah.
And so we had this cool stuff that we'd done, but we didn't have a place that all consolidated it online. So we thought a website was essential. We essentially created a website, and it was focused on our first few books instead of our company. And then we got a lot of people trying to get us to create their audiobooks. And so we actually took down the website. And for a year and a half, we had no website. And we were able to run our business very well without actually having a website. So the only reason we created it, I think I mentioned to you when we talked a little while ago that we hit over $1 million in revenue before we had a website and business cards. So we were really focused on the essentials of our core business and not focused on like the external credibility things that people might have needed at the time. We did create business cards and a website because we were going to a conference and we wanted to give something out, and we wanted to have a landing page for people to go to that told our story. So we did eventually get around to it. But it was interesting to see all the things that people think are essential about business that aren't. And, it's all about, for us, it was about creating awesome content, finding amazing audiobooks that were in our genres that we knew were things that we could succeed at, promoting it with innovative strategies. We might be able to get into that later on. But yeah, so, selling audiobooks is really our job, to keep our authors happy and to keep all our staff, paid and happy, and submit their stuff for awards and get some recognition to keep everyone feeling like, they want to give their best for every title of ours.
Yeah. So to wrap up the interview, I want to ask you about the serious stuff. So like for example, are you going anytime soon to open a big office with lots of full-time employees and these kind of things?
No. Actually, we got into a great discussion with a very senior, I think it's the head of Audible, actually, at a conference. And they asked us, how many employees do you have? And we kind of looked at each other. We're like, well, 0 technically. We're not even really employees. We're just co-founders. And they kind of were, oh, okay, because they knew about this big bestseller that we were nominated for. They knew they'd already heard of us. And all our competitors were like, 150, 200, 300 staff. Penguin Random House merged and created this massive company. And so they're really focused on a lot of quantity and a lot of manpower. And we just thought, we're not going to beat them at that. Let's figure out what we can do best. And, and if we can be more efficient than a lot of other people, we can share that with the authors. And that's one of the values that our authors see is, we don't have huge overheads, and we don't really want to have huge overheads. So if we can keep a team happy and motivated and feeling cohesive and create great stuff without having, an office building and staff and having to create locations, then we'll do it.
Yeah, and then the other thing is that you didn't take any outside funding, and do you need an outside funding, or would you be willing to take outside funding?
We've gotten to the point where we don't really need it. So because we reinvested everything into the company and didn't suck out money at a very crucial time in its infancy, this year we're on track to hit about 1.7 million in revenue in sales just in 2014, and it's scaling. Like we're doubling and tripling every quarter in terms of our revenue. So the revenue is not really a concern, and our profit margin is great because we're efficient, like I mentioned, and we have a great distribution contracts in the marketplace. So money is not really the concern. At the beginning, it was. We wanted to produce so much stuff. We had so many great authors, and we had to slowly produce book at a time, and get our money in, and then reinvest it. And it took a little bit, actually, longer than we thought it would, because we had that kind of cash flow issue at the beginning. But the reason we didn't take outside investing, and we have context in the venture capital world, was because there's a bit of a clash between creating a scalable company for the long term and trying to get immediate investor return.
Yeah, big scale.
When you're talking about efficiency and effectiveness in tasks or in work, that's what we try to create as a business model. Like our whole structure is built to be, minimum effective dose. Right. What do we need? What are the exact things that control revenue and that control sales? Not wasting a lot of money on marketing. There's a funny quote. We do spend money on marketing sometimes, but we do more innovative stuff with cross promotion and some Facebook marketing. We have a Facebook ninja that's pretty good at that. But there's a cool quote about marketing that is, marketing, the future of marketing is like sex. Only losers pay for it.
Okay.
And it's one of those things where, like, if your stuff is good enough, people will talk, and people will talk about it. They'll share it. Things can go viral if they're good, and it's a pretty democratic, flat world on the internet nowadays, where you can do a lot without having a lot of heavy, deep pockets or heavy advertising. So we try to leverage everything that we ever get, every little bit of marketing we get. Wall Street Journal is about to put something together. I just did a little interview for them yesterday, actually, and so we've got these cool media kind of coming to us and talking to us about things. So every little bit of stuff like that, we try to promote our authors. And really, podium publishing, the reason we started it like that was because it's all about putting these authors that are kind of trapped in a cage writing for the publisher. And the publisher's kind of whipping them, saying, "Give us content, and we'll pay you a little bit of money to subsistence to get by." We wanted to share and put that author on the podium. So above and beyond our branding, we don't really want to promote podium publishing. We want to promote our authors and our audiobooks. So like in marketing, we're not ever trying to really promote our company. It's all about trying to do what we promised our authors we would do.
Okay, so and on this happy note, more on James on the Proactive Magazine, and thank you, James, for sharing your story with us. And I hope people get as much from this interview as I did. And I think we are in the best time right now to make businesses like yours, like mine, like these businesses succeed. And we have all the power, and we can do it really, efficiently and scale very efficiently, just like James's example is showing. So thank you so much.
And there's some great tools out there like Noseby that help scattered creative minds like mine organize my day and get crazy amounts of stuff done. All right. So thanks a lot for inventing that.
Thanks, James. Thank you so much.